Let's bring in retired Army Major General Dana Pittard. He served as former Deputy Commanding General of the Third Army in Kuwait and commander in Iraq's fighting ISIS. And his new book is titled Hunting the Caliphate. And Nancy Youssef, staff writer with The Atlantic, covering national security in the Defense Department and former Middle East and foreign correspondent. So welcome to you both. Glad to have your voices here. So, General, first, CENTCOM says it has started setting groundwork to clear mines from the Strait of Hormuz. Talk about the risks involved doing that, not just to U.S. troops, but also to stability in that region.
Well, hi, Alex, and what an honor to be on with Nancy Youssef, who I've known for decades in the Middle East. There are risks, but it really is a good sign that the USS Frank E. Peterson and USS Michael Murphy, which are guided missile destroyers, have been allowed to go through the Strait of Hormuz, looking for mines, looking for other things there. That is a good thing. The Iranians could have fired upon those warships and completely kabashed this whole negotiations, but they did not. But there are risks. There are risks to Iran overplaying their hand in the Strait of Hormuz. The U.S. now has more time to bring in more assets, more munitions, more resources. So if the negotiations go south, that the Strait of Hormuz can be seized, which would not be in our best interest, but would absolutely take that away from Iran.
Nancy, you have written, Trump made a deal that gave him nothing he wanted, adding the war ended, at least for now, with Tehran controlling the Strait of Hormuz in a way that can be more powerful to Iran than a nuclear weapon. So is Trump today seeking a deal to govern the Strait going forward, or is he seeking a deal that limits Iran's overall ambitions? Are we clear on Trump's objectives, despite him saying, in that press clip that we played, it's 99% all about ending their nuclear ambitions?
Well, the reason I wrote that is, and thank you for having me on, and great to be on with you, General. The reason I wrote that is, one of the reasons that Iran was trying to acquire a nuclear weapon was to have leverage and to use it as a form of deterrence. But by taking control of the Strait, they've found another form of deterrence and leverage, because they now have something that the international community really values, something they didn't have before the war started. And they are now exercising that leverage. The war started as one about Iran's nuclear program, and here we are, the Strait of Hormuz is at the forefront of the talks. And so I think what the U.S. is hoping to achieve is some way to address the nuclear program and to find a way to reopen the Strait. What the Iranians are seeking, though, is sanctions relief and some sort of economic compensation for the damage that has happened to them. The question becomes, what will they accept? Will they accept something that involves losing the Strait, but perhaps gaining economic sanctions? And if they do, that would say something, because those sanctions were put in place because of their nuclear program. Or conversely, will the United States agree to some sort of economic benefit to the Iranians by way of the Strait of Hormuz? And that's why I think Iran feels that it has the upper hand, because it gained this leverage during the war. Having said that, I think seeing the level of delegates that are there, the time that they're spending talking, suggests that both sides are really trying to reach a deal. And so in that sense, there's reason to be optimistic.
When you look, though, at the lineup of, let's say, negotiators, you've got Vice President Vance, who's not done this kind of a diplomatic dance before. Who's walking in with the advantage in that regard?
Well, you'll remember Iran asked for J.D. Vance, and I think the reason they asked for him is threefold. One, he had opposed this war and is known to oppose the war, and so I think they know that knowledge could work to their advantage. He is a potential presidential candidate, and so I think that their thinking is that if he were to run for office, having this kind of deal struck might work for him politically. And if he were to be elected as president, he has more incentive to keep the terms of this deal, having been the one to negotiate it. So I think Iran is trying to set the terms, and has done so in some ways by allowing or being allowed to name who the negotiators are, at least one of them. And so that is a tell for us a little bit in terms of Iran's leverage and the U.S. willingness to engage on that leverage.
So, General, in a statement to MS Now, the White House has confirmed that the delegation includes experts and officials from the NSC, State Department, Pentagon. What does that suggest to you?
Well, what it suggests is we're serious about it. In fact, having Vice President Vance lead the delegation is a big deal. He's the highest-ranking U.S. official to meet with Iranian officials in over 47 years. That is something in itself. The fact that the discussion will also be on nuclear weapons or nuclear capability, as well as the military capability of Iran. The U.S. still has the option of going after the IRGC and continuing this war, which Iran does not want. Once again, Iran should not overplay their hand with the Strait of Hormuz. That can be taken away also.
General, the Wall Street Journal quotes U.S. officials saying Iran still has thousands of missiles, adding while Defense Secretary Hegseth and others say more than half of Iran's missile launchers have been destroyed, damaged, or trapped underground. Many of those can be repaired or dug out from underground complexes. How do you view the rhetoric versus the reality?
Well, I think the whole chest beating on the part of Secretary Hegseth has not been helpful. The military portion of this, at least tactically, has been done well. However, we have not completely destroyed Iran's capabilities, military capabilities. They still have ballistic missiles. They still have the Shahed drones, which have caused problems. They still have some level of nuclear capability. And they also have the underwater drones, which can cause problems for shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. So there's still a lot to do militarily if we want to.
Nancy, speaking of militarily, Israel's war in Lebanon has not stopped while America and Iran are trying to negotiate a ceasefire. And Lebanon says talks with Israel are scheduled for Tuesday in Washington. Are you, Nancy, learning any new details about this meeting? And will Israel's ongoing attacks in Lebanon add a wrinkle potentially to U.S. talks?
Well, they already have, in that the Iranians have been unwilling to open the Strait of Hormuz because of those strikes, saying that cessation of hostilities was part of the deal, and the U.S. saying it was not. And so we've already seen that fissure. We've seen 10 killed today in Lebanon through these strikes. And I think Israel's signaling its displeasure with the timing of these talks, in that it believes that Iran continues to pose a threat to Israel and that it must continue to combat it, in this case through their proxies in Lebanon, Hezbollah. We know that Hezbollah opposes these talks, but that the Lebanese people and the Lebanese government is stuck between this war between Israel and Hezbollah that controls huge swaths of their country, but has let it be vulnerable to attacks from Israel. And so Israel has said that they will enter talks, but that they're not going to stop the fighting. We know that Lebanon wants to see an end to these hostilities, which have been so devastating over the past few days. And so I think there'll be a real effort to reach at least a temporary ceasefire. But in the meantime, I think we should pay attention to what Israel's saying, because they are a factor in this. Remember, Iran is in Pakistan, the U.S. is in Pakistan, Israel's a key player, and they're not in Pakistan. And so that sort of divide between the United States and Israel going forward could be a factor. But I think General Petraeus is so right to say that while Iran might see that split as something that they can take advantage of, and the Strait is something they can take advantage of, they risk overplaying their hand. And so these next few days, how they manage these talks and what they try to negotiate, I think will tell us a lot about how much they want to reach a deal and how much they're going to try to push on that leverage that they have with the Strait and with these potential divisions between the United States and Israel about the ways ahead.
Okay, tenuous times to be certain. We'll be watching carefully. Nancy Youssef and General Dana Pittard, thank you so much.